Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it.
Grab my microphone here. How we doing, everybody? It is Nick, and it is April 30th, 8:30 a.m. EST, as always. And I forgot to set up my microphone. Give me a second there. All right, so the Fed held rates steady. Yep, well, that was to be expected, right? That's what Powell does. And what's interesting, though, is that the Fed had dropped, or the NASDAQ had dropped like pretty hard. And it had to do with some stuff that Trump said. And it just seems there's a lot of games being played. You know, Trump says something, everything drops. And then, you know, everybody expects the rate to drop, or the NASDAQ to drop further because Powell's going to, you know, hold the rates instead of cutting them. But then it doesn't drop. But here's what I did. You know, I charted this on the show. I don't know if I did it for the public live lab or the private. I think it was public. And I charted this on Tuesday. And I said, this is probably what's going to happen. And this is what's happening, right? And despite all the, you know, rigmarole of Trump said this and the Fed said that, the algos called it out, right? So there you have it. Pretty simple. Now, is it going to continue at this trajectory? Is it going to go up this fast? I don't know. You know, it could just for the rest of the week. I'll put a line here. So the end of the trading week is right there at that blue line, right? Now, it could pump up like that, but it also could just go sideways for like weeks, you know, and just kind of grind up and not do that. You know, might even pull back a bit here and there. I mean, but long story short, the overall picture is pretty bullish, right? And I'll check the stack here. We'll take a look at the indicator stack and just kind of see if that trend is the case. Leave that on there. So let's do that. All right. So yeah, no, this is pretty bullish overall. Like I say, it could take its time to get up there, but it's probably going to get up there, right? And you know, we know this in a sense. We know that the high probability of the NASDAQ and the stock market continuing up, if not slowly, then quickly over the rest of the year, because we have an election coming up, and the incumbents at this time want the market to stay high. It's kind of like the thing they can point to and say, hey, this is what we're doing, and it's working despite wars, despite this and that, right? So that's probably how it's going to go, right? So that said, I think right now, for the moment, we do have a local high to break on the NASDAQ, and that's right here at 27,627. So I will go ahead and make this a little more palatable to the eye. And we'll leave these up since that's a prediction for this week. You know, possible move all the way up there, but probably not going to happen this week. Might happen in a week or two, but we'll see. You know, could happen this week. It's very possible. So there you go. We got a few people watching. Feel free to say hello. If there's a chart you want to see, go ahead and list it out. Also, quick reminder, 68% of the people who watch this are not subscribed. So do us a favor, like, subscribe, share with your friends. And there is a free algo. Okay, the free algo is in your description. Click that link and it will lead you to a video where you see me build an algo, turn it into code, and I'll show you the tools traders use to connect that to their exchange so it can trade for them while they're not sitting at the computer. They could be golfing, sleeping, whatever it might be, and it trades. Just understand you have to optimize that before you plug it into trade. We teach you how to do that at algofactory.tech. Let's take a look at USD/JPY. Yeah, wow. So we had a note in our private chat from Claude saying JPY strengthening in this bold action. I don't know what that means. Let's take a look at Forex Factory, see if some news came by for the JPY, because I don't see any. Well, we saw the rate, the Bank of Japan held the rate steady. So the question is why did the Japanese yen do that? You can't see the screen I'm looking at right now. So let me ask AI. Why did the Japanese yen strengthen against the dollar? Question mark. So we'll see if the AI can give us any clues. I think there was a news release or something. Saw a dramatic surge overnight, strengthening from an intraday high from 160.70 yen to the dollar down to 156 yen to the dollar. Okay, so this was driven by aggressive verbal intervention from Japanese officials, which sparked widespread fear of actual physical market intervention by the Ministry of Finance. Final advisory warnings following a breach of the psychological 160, Japanese Vice Minister Atsushi Mimura issued what he called a final advisory to speculators. Finance Minister Satsuki Katayama, forgive me for not saying that properly, I think it's Satsuki Katayama, echoed this, stating that the time for decisive action was nearing. So let's see if I can pull up the article here. Article on mid-trade, I'll share it on the screen. Yeah, USD JPY retreats from multi-month highs as Japan's interventions warnings cap upside. So there you go. They're just saying that, hey, we might have to do something about this. And the market reacted as such. So let's jump back to the charts. Give me just one moment here. Just one moment. Yeah, okay, good. We'll come back to that later. Good. Apologies for the pause there. So that said, we know 160 has a ceiling, okay? And if I back out here, you're going to see how aggressively, not aggressively, what is this, the 3-hour chart? Yeah, it really did look like it was going to break out. I had it as bullish. I'd have to look at my forecast. Let's see if we can look at that forecast. Okay, so I'm going to flip to my weekly forecast screen that I do on Mondays and see what I said about it. Yeah, see, I had it. Let me zoom in a bit. It's funny that this all happened after the Bank of Japan rate was announced, right? Because I just had it kind of grinding for the rest of the week, kind of to the right or up and to the right, and it really, really ground. I mean, it went up really high. And the dollar itself got strong, and that had to do with some bellicose statements. Morning, Lisa. Thanks for coming in and saying hello to us. That had to do with some bellicose statements from Trump, and money went into the dollar. And right as soon as it breached 160, we had this big announcement, and the USD JPY just waterfall. I mean, not even a waterfall. It dumped 160 to 150. That's going to be a, I don't know, to 155. Is that a 3% drop? I mean, that's in forex markets. That's huge for such a short time. Yeah, it's a 3.2% drop. That's humongous in forex. These are currencies, guys. It isn't like they go up and down all the time like that. So anyway, that happened, and it is what it is. The psychological level at 160. Japan just had to have something to say about that, and that's fine. I wasn't trading it. It didn't hurt me any. And if I had, then, that's just like the way the cookie crumbles, right? So let's go ahead and make sure I'm on the right thing here. Yeah. That would a massive move down. All right, good. Well, it is what it is. And right now we're going to have to kind of let everything calm down. I doubt it's going to fall any further. Like today, I shouldn't say that at all. I doubt we're going to see any hard crashes like that, right? That was a shot across the bow, if you will. It did want to break out. Look, USD JPY was in a pretty big consolidation right there. Chances are it was going to break out to the upside, and it was measurable. So, that's a big consolidation. That's going back how many weeks? Mick Miko, good to see you. So what we see the March? Yeah, so like the last 2 weeks, basically, it's been in a consolidation, and it wanted to break upside, especially after the Trump statements about the war. and it didn't. They knocked it down. So now we gotta protect the currency. And remember, if the Bank of Japan really does something to protect their currency, like hiking the rates, that affects the entire market, right? In fact, this happened roughly at midnight, more or less. And interestingly enough, it didn't really affect the U.S. stock market the same, because that must mean that the U.S. stock market is not taking the Bank of Japan's concerns as a rate hike possibility. Maybe they'll do something else. If the market really thought that was the case, the market would have been spooked. It may be that things were put into place, and Japan told the Fed or something that they were going to do this, and so they protected the U.S. market. Who knows? Like, it's hard to know all the ins and outs of that. But from a strictly like macro sense, if the world thought that the Bank of Japan was going to hike their rates, then the U.S. stock market and indices should have fallen, right? And they did not. So that's something to bear in mind. Let's see how much time we have left. All right, we'll go over Bitcoin really quick. Look, not a lot to talk about here. The prediction that I made just the other day kind of still, fits. I mean, I didn't, I kind of have sideways and then a move up again. It seems like it wants to go touch 80K. I'll just review the stack here. Yeah, I think we're still going to see that. I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's why I do have it going out for, several days, maybe even a week or two. And then it pops up. So maybe next week, we'll see about it. The weekend tends to be pretty quiet. The only time the weekend is not quiet is if there is a liquidity trap, and for whatever reason the market wants to push price up while nobody is there to sell. However, chances are it'll just grind sideways, and if it pops up next week, it does. So we are going to go over the rest of our charts. We're going to do it in the private live lab. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget, like I said earlier, like, subscribe, all that jazzy stuff. It helps us out. Leave some comments. I'll look at a chart for you. I mean, I generally don't chart the crypto SHIT coins. I hang back from those just because, I mean, I'll chart them if you really want, but I'm more looking at markets that don't have massive liquidity issues and they're not scams and stuff like that. And of course, every market to some degree is scammy. But your forex markets, your stock markets, there's a lot of liquidity. There's a lot of money in and out of those. They make a lot more sense. They're much more predictable. They're much more tradable, with some exceptions in the crypto market like Bitcoin. So cartographer, I love it. That's probably the right word too. Interesting, Lisa. Thanks for that. My favorite Lisa Gray 569 fan. Always good to see you. We're going to hop off here, subscribe, all that stuff. We'll see you next Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. EST. As you know, I didn't do a show yesterday. I had a number of reasons for that. Among them, I generally don't do shows on FOMC day. It's nearly impossible to predict what they're going to do, impossible to predict what the chart's going to do. And even the Japanese yen chart overnight showed us an example of that. So thank you all for watching, and we will see you next week. Oh, by the way, if you want that the weekly forecast, just go ahead and take a look at that free algo in the description, and that'll put you on the list to get my weekly forecast that I put out generally on Mondays, sometimes early on Tuesday. All right, everybody, don't forget.
Join us or die.
Just kidding.